Most Venerable Nayaka, dear friends, I am very pleased to see so many people this evening interested in learning meditation. The topic is therapy through meditation. Cerebral meditation in recent years is used as a therapeutic method to cure numerous diseases, particularly psychological ailments. And therefore in the United States particularly, some clinics, some psychiatrists, psychotherapists, psychologists use meditation as a method of treating their patients. Recently, some psychiatrists have even got insurance companies' recognition for their insurance claims, and they openly use meditation techniques to treat their patients. Therefore, there is wide acceptance of meditation as a means of curing, treating patients, and several books have been written by psychiatrists. Now, therapeutic effect of meditation is just superficial effect. It has much deeper effect. Why people use meditation as a therapy? As you all know, medicine, chemicals that we take as medicine into the body can temporarily trigger our hormones in the body. As you all know, the body has a mechanism within itself to cure the body, provided we learn how to push that particular button in the body. If we learn how to push that button without chemicals, then in the place of chemicals we use as medicine, we call it medicine, we can cure ourselves. You all know people like patients suffering from paranoia and numerous other psychosomatic diseases. Cannot be treated with modern medical treatments. They continue to have these problems. Through the systematic training in meditation, these patients can be cured. What does meditation do? How meditation affects these people? In the first place, in meditation, of course, as I said, this is very superficial effect of meditation. In the first place, you learn to relax. It is because of our rigidity, uptightness, we create numerous neurotic states. When we relax, our deeply rooted beneficial factors in ourselves begin to unfold themselves. For instance, our anger. Our anger can be at least temporarily overcome by through relaxation. And when we relax, what happens is the body and mind operates very smoothly, both in the brain, both hemispheres, left and right, cooperate with each other. When both right and left hemispheres cooperate with each other, the brain creates alpha waves. Alpha waves are the waves that generate positive hormones in the pituitary gland. And then there is another very beautiful emotional, sublime emotional root within ourselves. Root of what we call loving kindness. Sometimes people have a great deal of misunderstanding of loving kindness because they think it is some sort of impracticable, unpragmatic approach, cultivating loving kindness. But people who learn through meditation to relax and to cultivate loving kindness can see the benefit immediately. Loving kindness, the root of loving kindness, each and every one of us has it. We have the root. But some of us know how to cultivate it, others don't know that even that exists within themselves. When they are rigid, uptight, full of tension, anxieties, they can never see the existence of the root of loving kindness, the seed of loving kindness. When you meditate, there are stages that you go through. One stage is, say, jhanic meditation, for instance. Jhanic meditation. I like to spend some time explaining jhanic meditation in order to clarify certain doubts, certain confusions that people already have with regard to tranquility meditation or jhanic meditation. Also, I want to spend some time explaining jhanic meditation to show where loving kindness in jhanic meditation begins to develop. What is jhanic meditation? How to cultivate it? Well, if I were to go into great detail of how to cultivate jhanas, perhaps I might need much longer time than we are supposed to have tonight. But I try to be as brief as possible and outline the basic principles of jhanic meditation. And also want to show how that practice would affect people as a therapeutic method to overcome certain deeply rooted psychic irritations. What happens in jhanic meditation, you first sit down in a reasonably comfortable position and relax your body and mind. And then take up a subject, say maybe your own breath. You know, many people have difficulty in using the breath to relax because of their previous conditioning. Their mind is naturally wandering here and there. It is a very normal thing. But people who want to practice meditation have to make a commitment, determination, not to move around, but to stay in one place steadily, firmly, with firm determination to go ahead with the practice. Without such commitment, it may be not possible for people to practice not only jhana meditation, any meditation. If somebody wants to use meditation as a technique, as a method of curing, as a therapy, then of course one has to use it very sincerely, honestly, making a commitment to be consistent. Otherwise it's just like taking medicine. When you take medicine, if you take it today and don't take it for another 10 days, the medicine is not going to work. If you want to have, say, antibiotic for instance, when if a doctor recommends a dose of antibiotic, a course of antibiotic, you got to take, if he recommends 20 pills, you must take all the 20 pills until last pill you must take. If you give up halfway, you will have some side effect later on, and therefore you got to continue. Similarly, if one wants to use meditation as a means to cure or as a method of curing, as a therapy, you've got to practice it very meticulously, sincerely, honestly, consistently for a long period of time. Doing it here and there occasionally is not going to yield any benefit. So suppose you sit and make the commitment never to get up until that period that you determine at the beginning of sitting is over. Suppose at the beginning of sitting you determine to sit for 45 minutes. During that time you may have little aches and pains and so forth. Every time you have little difficulties like that, you've got to relax and remind yourself of the commitment. And with all these things, suppose you start and then you have some, when the body and mind relax, you feel a little sleepy, drowsy and so forth. You got to overcome your sleepiness and drowsiness. How to overcome your sleepiness when you meditate? I recommend, I said sleepiness itself appears to be very pleasant, very beautiful. It makes you, it's very sweet when sleepiness overpowers you and you overwhelms you. You begin to feel reasonably comfortable and you want to stay in that state and go to sleep. However, no matter how long you sleep, you will not wake up with new insight. So you've got to overcome if you want to use meditation as a means to cure certain things. You got to overcome sleepiness. I recommend several things which are not my own recommendations, but the Buddha himself recommended them. There are two sutras. One is called Vitakka Santana Sutta, the other is called Sabbasava Sutta. In these sutras he has recommended a method, several ways of overcome sleepiness. One is to open your eyes and close, roll your eyeballs and close again and start the practice. Second is to pinch your earlobes with your index finger and thumb, very hard enough for you to feel the pinch. Third is to get up and wash your face with cold water. Fourth is to get up and do walking meditation. Fifth is to take a deep breath and hold it as long as you can, and then breathe out very slowly. And take another deep breath and hold it as long as you like, as you can, and breathe out very slowly. When you do it several times, your body warms up and you may even perspire, which wakes you up, and then you can start the practice. So finally, none of these things works. I recommend people to go and have a nap. That would wake them up. However, having overcome sleepiness, overcoming sleepiness is one of the most important beginning steps in meditation. Sleepiness is considered to be a hindrance. It is considered to be a hindrance because it hinders your concentration. Therefore, as soon as you overcome your sleepiness, mind stays on the object. On the object. Here in this case your object is your own breathing. That is what is called initial application of mind to the object. Until that time, mind is not really applied to the object. Mind is wandering here and there. You know, that gives you additional courage and confidence, because you began to see the results. You began to see the results of overcoming sleepiness. The results of overcoming sleepiness is mind stays on the object and has initial application of thought. And then you have confidence in your practice. When confidence arises, your doubt fades away. Up to that point, you might have had certain degree of doubts within yourself, doubts about the practice, doubt about the method, doubt about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and so forth. When you begin to see the results, your doubt fades away. And in the place of doubt, you have confidence. Now, then you proceed with the practice. You are not relying on certain theories. You are not trying to recall your memories of the things that you have read about jhana, but you are experiencing it. You know, anything you can make real only if you experience it. If you simply rely on theories, it remains to be theory forever. Now here is a very practical procedure, practical method of applying the theory of meditation into your own life. Then, when you have confidence, doubt faded away, you gain a degree of joy. Joy, which arises by steps. It is at the beginning very faint, very light, very small degree of joy, and then slowly and gradually it increases. When joy increases, at that state your resentment, anger, rigidity, uptightness fades away, because that is the stage where the body and mind relax. Rigidity, anger and relaxation cannot exist together. These are two different species, two different animals. When one arises, other leaves the den, so to say. So when joy arises, resentment disappears. When the resentment disappears, loving kindness grows. And that begins to unfold by itself. And you can see the upsurge of loving kindness coming from within yourself, springing up. And then that is the moment you begin to feel the entire body and mind is saturated with the thought, with the experience of loving kindness. Now joy disappears, the anger disappears, joy arises. As anger disappears, loving kindness grows. And then there arises a moment of happiness. When happiness arises, your restlessness and worry fades away. Now, generally, people think their agitation, excitement is happiness. Ordinarily, that is how they use the word happiness. When you are excited over certain things, you think you are happy. For instance, when you get your first automobile, your bicycle or motorbike or car, or your long-awaited loved one you met, you are very excited. And you express this excitement in many different ways. You may talk about that moment, you may laugh, you may smile, you may sing, you may dance, you may hug, you may kiss, and you even may cry to express your excitement. And that is not happiness, that is just excitement. When you meditate, when real happiness arises through joy, relaxation, your body and mind becomes totally calm and peaceful. At that time, restlessness and worry fades away. Now, I also want to pause here for a minute and try to make the distinction between joy and happiness. Because sometimes people might think joy and happiness are rather two terms for the same thing, two words for the same thing. It's not so. Joy in anticipation of something, what you experience is joy. When you experience it and satisfied fully, what you experience is called happiness. For example, I give you an analogy to illustrate this, to make it clear. Suppose you are traveling in a desert, sand desert. Desert, you don't find road signs, no water, no trees, no road, no signs, nothing. In that desert, you are traveling for a certain period of time, and you are tired, thirsty, hungry, and full of worries. At that time, you see somebody walking towards you with wet hair, wet cloth, wet body, refreshed face, walking towards you. Then you might ask the person, now look, I am also walking in the same desert, but my body is dry, clothes are dry, the hair is dry, face is withered, full of worries. But your body, your clothes, your hair, all wet, and the face is refreshed. What is the secret? The man would tell you, my dear friend, I happen to pass an oasis in the desert. Hearing these words, you become delightful, full of joy. And then you continue to walk towards the direction he came from. And for sure, you also encounter that oasis. As soon as you see that, you, without removing your clothes, you jump into it, dive in it, eat lotus fruits, lotus buds, and swim it, drink plenty of water, and then come to the bank and stretch your hands and legs and say, what a happiness! What a happiness! Now you have contentment, you have fulfilled, you have satisfied, and you have, when you are satisfied, fulfilled, you are relaxed. Just like when a baby is crying, you feed the baby. As soon as you fed the baby, what happens? Baby becomes very quiet and goes to sleep. Baby is no more exciting, no more agitating, no more crying. Similarly, when you fulfill what you wanted, you are content, satisfied, you experience happiness. Prior to that, in anticipation of what you are going to have, what you experience is called joy. Therefore, joy and happiness are not one and the same thing. When happiness arises, what happens? The body and mind are calm, quiet, peaceful, joyful, and that calm, quiet, peaceful state of mind leads to concentration. Concentration. When concentration arises, your greed, clinging, craving disappears. Here again, some people think concentration and greed are one and the same thing, because when you are concentrated, you are glued to something. Concentration is not gluing to something. Concentration is gaining one-pointedness of mind with the state of equanimity. Equanimity is not one-siding, one side, one towards one or towards other. That means you are in the neutral position. So because of the presence of neutrality, because of the presence of equanimity in the mind, your mind does not glue to something, does not hold on to something, but remains concentrated. And therefore, when concentration arises, your greed, clinging, craving fades away. Now what happens? You have attained a state where what I mentioned was 5 hindrances. You have overcome 5 hindrances and replaced them with 5 factors of jhana, jhanic factors. Now let me put them in perspective once again for you to put them side by side. When you overcome sleepiness and drowsiness, you gain initial application of thought. Then you overcome your doubt. When doubt disappears, your confidence arises and mind stays on the object. That is what is called sustained application of thought. When that happens, you experience joy. When joy arises, your resentment disappears. When joy arises, resentment disappears, you become happy. When happiness arises, your excitement, agitation, restlessness and worry fades away. Then you gain concentration. When you gain concentration, your greed, clinging, craving fades away. Now on the one hand you have sleepiness and drowsiness, doubt, resentment, restlessness and worry, and greed. On the other side you have initial application of thought, sustained application of thought, joy, happiness and concentration. Now when these factors, these are the positive factors, are called jhanic factors. When jhanic factors arise by themselves independent of one another, sporadically, occasionally, you are not said to have attained jhanas. Anybody can have them occasionally. Sometimes you have joy, sometimes you have little contentment, sometimes you have little relaxation, sometimes you have confidence, and so forth. Sometimes you even may have little concentration. And arising of them sporadically, independent of each other, is not considered to be the attainment of jhana. When these 5 jhanic factors overcome these 5 hindrances, there arises a moment of what is called sign of concentration. This is called nimitta in Pali. Concentration, sign of concentration. That sign may be like a spark of light or little cotton, piece of cotton rubbing on your nose tip, or something like a very strong, sharp object hitting the nose tip, the place where you try to focus your mind on. And that moment, because of this sharpness of the light, brightness of the light, intensity of the light, you gain concentration. At that point, at the same time, jhanic factors function together in unison as one object, one factor. All the 5 joined together become a unit. At that moment you attain the first jhana. Now you don't have to imagine all this. They happen naturally as you grow, mature in your practice. It happens. No one else knows it. If that happens to you, I don't know it. Only you know it. If I were to say, as soon as I come and look at the face of many people, if I were to say, well, you are in such and such jhana, I am faking, I am making very wrong impression. I give you an impression that I have supernatural powers to know your mind. That is completely against the Buddha's teaching. One who knows meditation tradition, practice meditation, and very sincere and honest would never make that kind of statement. That individual would allow students to practice, follow the system, method, and only if they have problems and difficulties, the instructor or the teacher would help them, giving some suggestions. However, when you attain this stage, what happens? Your attainment is compared to a situation where you take some bath powder. You take some bath powder and put into a bath tub and fill the tub with water. What happens? The powder, bath powder, dissolves in water so well that you cannot separate bath powder from water, because bath powder is dissolved in water. All you see is water. It is impossible to separate. The bath powder is inseparable from water now. It is dissolved. Similarly, when you attain the first jhana, your experience is so engulfed your mind and body. Your mind and body is saturated with this experience. Every pore in your skin, every hair on your body is charged with this experience, like electric current, and you cannot separate. Your joy, happiness continues to flow all over your body. That may not last too long, but this attainment does not happen to you by itself. And that is the moment a meditator who may have some other psychic problems, psychosomatic difficult problems, neurotic problems, begin to taper off, begin to disappear. Why? That is the moment every neuron, 100 billion neurons in your brain, when we are born, from the second week onward, in our mother's, when we are conceived in the mother's womb, from the second week onward, neurons begin to develop in our brain. Second month onward, neurons begin to develop in our brain. And 2 months before our birth, all the neurons are already built up. And by birth, we all are born with 100 billion neurons. Very powerful state. And these neurons can be affected by numerous types of conditioning. They can be conditioned while we are in the mother's womb, because of the mother's behavior. They can be affected by the environment, because of the other people's activities. They can be affected as soon as we are born, because other conditions, social, religious, cultural, linguistic, and so forth and so on. These neurons can be affected. When we meditate, attain the first jhana, at that jhanic experience, jhanic moment, all the neurons operate very smoothly. All the right and the left, the reasons and emotions, both hemispheres, left and right, operate very smoothly. Why? Our hindrances are suppressed, jhanic factors are active. At that time, neurons automatically, definitely operate very smoothly. And many tiny little physical aches and pains and psychological defects temporarily become suspended. Now this does not happen by itself. We, from the beginning of meditation, we program this into our mind. How we program it? We very carefully observe, notice, watch our development. We see when we close our eyes. We don't rely on other people's experiences, on theories, but from our own mental development. Through our own experience, we watch and watch and watch and we see this. Therefore, when you attain the first stage of jhana or first jhana, you are in a position to remember what happened to you. And therefore, if you want to go to another jhana, you cannot jump to another jhana, second jhana. You should be able to recall, remember. That's called avajjana in Pali. In order, you have to master the first attainment. To master something, you actually should know what you have attained. You know, when you want to master certain physical skill, say some acrobatic exercise, you must remember, suppose you are going to learn the skiing in all countries, or you learn, say, badminton, carom or something, you have to know the mistakes you made and the progress you made, and then develop the progress and overcome mistakes. Similarly, when you attain the first jhana, you remember from the very beginning what you did and what you did not do, what you let go of and what you sustained and maintained and supported within yourself. And therefore, when you attain the first jhana, you master it by 5 ways. You remember how you attain it, because it did not happen to you. Many people think you, as soon as you sit, you can attain jhanas, or after some time you can attain jhanas, or they think that jhana simply occurs to them without their awareness. That's not possible. Jhana is something you attain intentionally, willingly, wittingly, consciously, and therefore you remember how you attain it. That is one thing. Keep remembering the steps that you took, that you followed to attain it. Samapajjana is second. That means you attain it over and over again. Before you attain it, you must determine how long you are going to stay. When you attain the first jhana, it may last maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you do lose it. Second time when you attain it, you determine, now I am going to sit for 5 minutes and experience this jhana for 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, almost automatically you get out of it, because at the beginning you made the commitment, determination that you are going to sit only for 5 minutes. It is just like your internal clock. Sometimes when you go to sleep, some people are able to turn their internal clock's alarm to get up at certain times. They get up at that time without that difficulty. Similarly, when you sit to meditate, because when you attain the jhanas, you have learned to control your mind, to discipline your mind. And therefore, because of this discipline, this control, you will be able to determine what time you should get up, how long you sit. Then get out, and then you reflect upon your achievement. So these are the 5 ways that you should use to master the attainment. Number 1 of these 5 ways is that you must remember the steps that you attained, that you followed. Then you must make a commitment, determination to attain it, and determination to get out of it. Then attain it. Just determination itself is not enough. You determine and attain, and with determination you get out. The last is reflection. You got to remember the steps that you followed to I mean, you have to repeat this method. So this is how you attain the first jhana. When you attain the first jhana, when you have this experience, you have to repeat it many times. Some people, average people, who don't have that much time, may not be interested in going into any other jhanas. But the attainment of the first jhana alone is a very powerful state for people to overcome their numerous psychic irritations, at least temporarily. After that, if you want to attain the second jhana, you got to determine whether you want to attain the second jhana in following the five-fold method or four-fold method. There are 4 jhanas according to Sutra tradition and 5 jhanas according to Abhidhamma tradition. Why 5? It is just like out of these 2 people, one is an experienced, robust, young, healthy mountain climber. The other is inexperienced, weak, irregular climber. So the less experienced, irregular, weak mountain climber climbs slowly. There are 5 resting places on the mountain before you reach the top. Including the top, there are 5. So the weaker one would rest at each resting place. The stronger one, experienced one, would skip the second because he is so vigorous, strong, and go to the 5th, skipping one. So he will have only 4 resting places. The other will have 5 resting places. Similarly, more intellectual, more sharp-minded person, skillful person may attain only 4 jhanas, eliminating one factor. Less intellectual, less sharp individual will need 5 steps and need 5 jhanas. When you attain the second jhana, suppose you are very skillful meditator. When you attain the second jhana, you don't go through the same process. You skip initial application of thought and sustained application of thought at the same time. That means initial application of thought is necessary for one who attains for the first time. It is just like a villager who doesn't have much experience with the urban life, city life, and he wants to see the king. So he would hesitate to make an appointment to see the king by himself. So he would find somebody who knows the king, and he approaches him and requests him to help him to make an appointment to see the king. So you go and see the king for the first time, and then establish certain acquaintanceship with the king, friendship with the king. When you want to go and see him for the second time, you don't have to go through the agent, through your friend. You can go directly. Similarly, when you attain the second jhana, you don't have to go through the same steps, and especially one who is more skillful will skip initial application and sustained application and go to the joy state, joyful state. That person will not attain initial application and sustained application for another reason. That is, they are still close to their nearest enemies, such as sleepiness and doubt, and therefore they skip and attain the second jhana with joy, happiness, and concentration. So, when one attains the second jhana, that individual's experience is compared to a beautiful lake full of water, fresh, clean water, which overflows the lake. The water overflows the lake all the time. And from time to time, there will be a very gentle, light rain. And from the bottom, there is a spring. That spring keeps supplying fresh water from the bottom. Now just imagine the lake which is overflowing, rain water falls on it from time to time, and the spring at the bottom supplies fresh water always continuously. Just imagine what a beautiful lake that should be. Very, very cool, very clean. You can see even the bottom of such a lake. The mind of the person who attains that stage of jhana, or the second jhana, is exactly like that. Why? The joy and happiness is always arising as like a spring, as water arises, springing from a spring all the time. Always new, fresh joy, fresh happiness is coming to the mind, and it continuously flows in the mind. So the person feels that joy and happiness in the second jhana. The attaining higher jhanas is the same as attaining the first and second. That is, it is a process of eliminating and cultivating. You eliminate lower jhanic factors and cultivate higher factors. When you attain the third jhana, your state of mind is just like compared to a lake full of lotus. A lake full of lotus, each lotus plant has leaves, roots in the mud. Each lotus plant has fruit in the mud. But every tiny cell of the lotus plant is saturated, filled, and rich with the moisture of water in the lake. It is full of moisture, and it is also inseparable, very solid, firm, strong, unlike two other previous stages. So when you are in the third jhana, your mind is firm, steady, to very great degree. When you attain the fourth jhana, your mind is compared to a man sitting under a tree covered with white piece of cloth. That means the person is totally, completely covered with white piece of cloth. Meaning, your experience is so delightful, so light, no burden whatsoever. You feel very light. And that state of mind, this is where the real neurotic, psychotic state disappears for a long period of time. And that state is described by the Buddha by 4 pairs of words. He said that state is evan anangane vigatupakilese, no, evan parisuddhe paryodate, anangane vigatupakilese, mudubhute kammaniye, thite ananjapatte. These are the 8 words in 4 pairs of words. First pair is evan parisuddhe paryodate. Parisuddha means pure. At that state, the mind is pure. Paryodata means white. White is a figurative expression of purity. Anangane vigata upakilesa. Anangana means stainless. Vigata upakilesa, no subtle psychic irritations are present. Then kammaniye thite. Kammani means pliable, elastic. No, kammaniye mudubhute. Kammani mudubhute. Mudubhute means soft. Kammani means pliable, ready for action. The last pair is ananjapatte thite, unshakable. Ananjapatte means imperturbable. Thita means steady. That is the state where the meditator really experiences the steadiness, purity and imperturbability of the mind. And that is where really your meditation overcomes, destroys temporarily all your psychic irritations. And Buddha said, when you attain that stage of jhana, even your mindfulness becomes pure. Even your mindfulness becomes pure. Why? He said, sati parisuddhi, upekha sati parisuddhi, chatutta jhanam upasampadya viharati. Sukhassa ca pahana, dukkhassa ca pahana, pubbeva somanasa domanasana attangama, adukkhaṃ asukhaṃ, upekha sati parisuddhiṃ chatutta jhanam upasampadya viharati. Your pains and aches are all gone, your disappointments are gone, resentment and anger are gone, your restlessness and worry are gone, your mind is full of mindfulness, and purity of mindfulness is there due to the presence of equanimity. Upekha sati parisuddhi chatutta jhana upasampadya viharati. You are in the state of 4th jhana where mindfulness is pure because of the presence of equanimity. And that is where you are able to overcome your psychic irritations, and the practice of meditation really becomes 100% therapy, or has 100% therapeutic effect on you. And this is how it works. I think I will be very pleased to answer your questions if you have any. I don't want to speak longer than that by myself without your response. There has to be a certain degree of feedback. If there is a feedback, then we can have a little lively discussion. And I invite questions. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Just now referring to your jhana experience, Janet experience about human. The water you are talking about, is it you see the water or you have just a feeling of it? Is it seen as a vision or just as a...
Oh, I'm very glad you asked me that question. In fact, it is an analogy. It is a simile. It is more allegorical rather than literal. You feel exactly like that. You are not imagining, visualizing anything. It is allegorical. You know, I take, for example, a paranoid person. You know, paranoia. Paranoid person's symptoms are that person suspects everybody. Nobody that person will trust. Thinks everybody is against him. And that person thinks everybody is talking behind that person, behind the back of that person, is thinking, plotting, talking bad about the person, nitpicking and plotting. And the paranoid person does not appreciate other people's joy and happiness. Sometimes, in a very strong paranoid case, the person, if the person sees somebody is enjoying telephone conversations or conversation with another person, or enjoying a gift received by sent by somebody, and so forth, at that instant this person would do something very drastic, very unusual to draw everybody's attention. Or drop a cup, or break a glass, or drop on the floor, or shout, or just something to draw other people's attention. Or a paranoid person will sometimes behave very beautifully, nobody can suspect. And when somebody is healthy, this person becomes very jealous, full of anger. Even suppose mother is paranoid. Mother hates to see children's progress, development, joy, happiness. They hate. Mother would do all sorts of things to make the person miserable, son or daughter, miserable, unhappy. In addition to all other things that I mentioned. So these are the symptoms of paranoia. Right. So when they learn to meditate under very skillful leadership, guidance of a good meditation teacher who has unlimited patience, enormous compassion, deep understanding, and all the qualities of a good friend, soft-spoken, ready to listen, compassionate, ready to guide, and doesn't give wrong directions, doesn't mislead the patients, and doesn't try to abuse the patient. And sometimes meditation teachers, if they are not happen to be good friends, meditation teachers have to be good friends. If they are not good friends, they may have some qualities, but at the same time they may try to abuse the student. Suppose somebody has all these noble qualities of a good friend. That friend can help such a person through systematic guidance. Not very quickly. Psychotic patients need certain amount of traditional medication, traditional attention of a professional person to break through. And then, by side, the psychiatric treatment, the person would be guided very gently, kindly, skillfully through meditation. Not directly, not immediately. It is possible. It is possible. You know, we have people, all kind of people in our meditation centers, and especially these clinical psychologists, psychoanalysts, especially psychiatrists. They take any kind of patient along with their traditional medication. They guide them through meditation. Yeah. Yeah. Our brain what? Uh-huh. The mind is not necessarily the product of our chemistry, physical chemistry, or just brain waves. Mind is a sum total of the personality. It's a very special force that we develop, or that we have, or that we have inherited from our previous lives. And here it receives support from the physical base. The physical base for the mind is these 500 billion neurons. That's the physical base. That physical base alone will not be enough to function for the mind to exist. It has to have its own roots. It is just like when you want to make curd, yogurt. Just yogurt itself, the milk itself is not enough. Milk needs little culture. When you put little culture into milk, it turns into yogurt. Similarly, mind has to have its own root somewhere. And that is not always in the neurons, in what you call brain waves. For the brain waves, there has to have another force which we strongly believe to be the force we inherited at the conception. You know, this is very interesting question. Biophysicists, microbiophysicists are still puzzled with certain biological, psychological, neurotic or problems. Not neurotic, neurological problems. One is that at the moment of conception, they cannot understand how one out of 200 to 500 sperms, out of 200 to 500 sperms released into the birth canal at one point, one out of them going through lot of pain, lot of struggles, lot of fights, because as soon as any foreign body enters some body, the body tries to reject all of them. There's gas, there is what you call acid and yeast and all sort of things in that region. And they all try to reject everything that comes in. And one of them, one of these 200 to 500 millions of sperms fights the way up to the egg, which is 85,000 bigger than the sperm, 85,000 bigger than sperm. And this fight, they don't understand how one of them, what magic, what magnet is there to push its way up to that egg. It's upward stream, upward path, difficult path, fighting all through. Only one reaches there. As soon as it reaches there and joins, the egg immediately builds a wall around it so that no other sperm can enter. And from that point onward, it becomes one cell. And that cell continues to grow, producing various, all the necessary things, giving commands. It has DNA. The DNA gives commands to this fine, very tiny little organ to produce everything necessary, and it tells where to. It tells the cell where the hair should go, long hair. Long hair, if long hair goes to the eyebrow, what will happen? It gives command for the short hair to go eyebrows. It gives commands to eyes to go to the places where eyes should go. It gives command to break these first our fingers, and all are like webs, like ducks' feet, webbed. And it gives command to cut, eat up the unnecessary parts to separate fingers. Gives command to build up nerves, gives command to build up arteries, veins, capillaries, heart, liver, lungs, pancreas, and so forth and so on. All, it gives command for them to go to the right place and stop them and start functioning exactly properly. Yes. You know, if the answer is that simple, these people would not have that much difficulty in solving this problem. They still are struggling to find out what mechanism is there to make all these things generate their own products and send them to right place and create this body in this way. So they believe that there is another force which they don't understand. We attribute that force to our karmic force, which is imbibed, which is encapsulated in that very fine, invisible, imperceptible, immaterial force which we call consciousness. That is the beginning. And therefore, the mind is there to create, make all these things possible. Now somebody has another question. I really enjoy all your questions. Every question is very, very good question. Next time, do jhanic experiences help us to develop
Yes.
the mind further? I try to read without my glasses, which is very not very wise thing. I normally use my glasses to read. Yes, do jhanic experiences help us to develop the mind further? Surely. Jhanic experience, I do not go into that area because that's another subject by itself. It takes very long time. There are two ways to go after the attaining jhanas. One way is to cultivate numerous immaterial jhanas, 4 immaterial jhanas, and then to cultivate numerous supernatural powers. That's one way to go. The other way is to use this jhanic experience, jhanic force, to focus the mind on our own body and mind. That means to cultivate our insight meditation, develop insight meditation, using the jhanic experience with the deep, powerful, concentrated state of mind. We look at ourselves to see us exactly as we are. One who has gained that jhanic attainment, Buddha said, looks at the body and sees the body just like someone who looks at a crystal which has, or diamond, which has a thread going from end to end. Inside the thread, inside the diamond, there is a thread going from end to end. When somebody with very good eyesight looks at the diamond and sees the thread very, very clearly. Similarly, Buddha said, when one attains the 4th jhana, that individual can use that jhanic concentration or that one-pointedness of mind to look at oneself, to see oneself exactly as he or she is. And that is how true vipassana or insight meditation begins to develop more clearly. So that's how we cultivate. So we use, certainly, this is a good question, and this is how we use jhanic experience. Yeah.
You started saying that loving kindness is a very important factor. But having talked about the jhana stages, we did not continue this way. How loving kindness fits into the jhana?
You know, loving kindness almost naturally grows in the mind when the mind is relaxed. And that gives additional support, either to, especially to gain jhana. Loving kindness alone is not enough to gain jhana. You can attain actually first 3 jhanas with loving kindness, but that alone is not enough to reach the 4th jhana. If one wants to use loving kindness alone as an object to proceed with the practice, one has to start from loving kindness. And for the loving kindness, the object is numerable, unlimited. Therefore it is difficult to use loving kindness as an object of jhanic meditation. Unless one has gained jhana through other method that is using another object, and then use that jhanic experience to cultivate loving kindness. Otherwise it's not that easy. However, loving kindness is an inevitable, integral part of jhanic meditation, because as soon as our mind frees temporarily from resentment, anger, the mind is relaxed. In that relaxed state of mind, the meditator begins to feel that everything and everyone in the universe is one's own relative, friend, parents, brothers and sisters. No friction, conflict, anger and so forth towards anybody. That is how loving kindness becomes a part of this meditation. That can be cultivated as separate meditation method also. In fact, although I used it in my talk as a sort of a side issue, loving kindness itself is another meditation system, meditation method. I like very much to talk about loving kindness even more than jhana, because there are many things to say about loving kindness. But I have to restrain myself, to limit myself, to confine myself to one particular area when I give a talk.
You have no loving kindness.
My loving kindness has to, I must limit my loving kindness so that I will not become very cruel to these people by boring and tiring and making them very hard for them to sit too long. Out of loving kindness, I shorten my speech. You know, once you get out of this jhanic experience, her question is how you integrate your life into daily activities after coming out of jhanic experience. Once you are interested in jhanic meditation, gaining jhanas and so forth, your interest in everything else is not as great as before. However, your concentration is very deep and powerful. You have tasted concentration and you always want to go back to it. When you are supposed to go back to work and you want to finish the work, always your mind is in your meditation. You think, you build up the momentum and look forward to the time to sit in meditation. So your interest in meditation remains very powerful and forceful, and your interest in everything else becomes secondary. So, as far as mental peace, mental culture, the tranquility is concerned, you are stronger in that area. As far as mundane, ordinary, worldly things are concerned, you are just functional and not competing with others, not trying to become too ambitious, because you feel all of these are not that important. They don't bring you that happiness, that kind of joy, that kind of concentration. Your mind is, in fact, when your mind is very peaceful, you really won't be interested in anything else. And that, just imagine how difficult it is to gain that peace, becoming excited and getting, going out, doing this and that, eating, drinking, sleeping, dancing, etc. All these are very simple, very easy. Anybody can do it. And with all these struggle and difficulties, once you attain this particular wonderful state, you feel everything else is just so-so. Okay. That's a good question also. Would we be attached to the jhanic state? Surely some people who are not mindful. One thing in Buddhist meditation, we are practicing right mindfulness, right concentration. There's a difference between right concentration and wrong concentration. Right concentration has necessarily mindfulness in it. That is why when we attain the fourth jhana, mindfulness becomes pure because of the presence of equanimity. And therefore, as long as mindfulness is there, equanimity is there, you are not attached to jhana. If your jhana is wrong concentration, that means your practice is wrong concentration as opposed to right concentration, then you become attached to the jhanas. And therefore, many people have a misconception that if you practice jhana, you become attached to jhana. That depends on the kind of jhana you practice. By wrong concentration also you can gain jhana. And therefore you are attached to jhana. Through right concentration you can gain jhana, then you are not attached to jhana. And that is why, if you remember my explanation, when you gain concentration, your attachment fades away, disappears. Even in the attainment of the first jhana, when you attain even the first jhana, when you gain concentration, the fifth jhanic factor, when you cultivate, your attachment fades away. If you are still attached to the jhana, you have not cultivated right concentration. And therefore we have to make the distinction between right concentration and wrong concentration. If you practice wrong concentration, you will necessarily be attached to jhanas, because you have not overcome, you have not gained true concentration either. Because when true concentration arises, your attachment fades away. When you are in the fourth jhana, you have gone through 4 stages and mastered each jhana many hundreds of times. Hundreds of times you have to master each jhana before you go to the higher jhana. Therefore, every time you attain jhana, you learn not to cling to any jhanic experience. So when you attain the fourth jhana, your mindfulness is pure, clean, strong, because of the presence of equanimity. And therefore you may not automatically be attached to jhana. If somebody becomes attached to jhana, that person might have not practiced right concentration.
Recent philosophy is in our heart. Medical science says it is in our brain. Parapsychologists say it is rather in our brain.
Yes, there are 2 theories, cardiac theory and cerebral theory. Those who have the cardiac theory comes from Abhidharma. According to Abhidharma, when beings are conceived, the first organ to develop is the heart. And as soon as heart develops, mind begins to function. Therefore they think the mind is in the heart. The cerebral theorists believe that without the development of neurons, the mind, as that gentleman asked, mind will not become manifest. So they say there is therefore direct relationship between mind and neurons. But we believe, but the third, the contribution we can make to these two theories is that the mind is everywhere, everywhere, in the body and brain, heart, liver, and everywhere. Why? Because no matter where we contact, even we contact something by the tip of our finger, that instant, at that place, we experience something, and that experience at that place is the function of the mind. So it is just like oil in a mustard seed. Oil in everywhere. In the whole mustard seed there is oil. Similarly, from the very moment we were conceived, from the very moment our relinking consciousness linked this body with the previous one, this mind or this body, whole personality is linked with the previous life. From that moment, the mind continues to operate as the other organs in the body develops. The mind incorporates their development, as associate with them and live with them, function with them all the time. And therefore, to say mind is in one single spot, as in, you may remember Venerable Nagasena answered